Y'all are live.
All right. Are we all set? Are we counting down? Or are we all live, ready to rock, Jacob?
All live and ready to go.
Wow. How about that? All right. Welcome to another edition of Duval Rundown. Certainly appreciate you guys being with us. Rick Ballou, kind enough to join us today. Rick, how you doing?
I'm great. What a great Friday morning. Really
Great.
looking forward to tonight.
That's
Simulated
right.
game or a mock game or whatever it's going to be. But I think it's going to be a treat for Jaguar fans.
Absolutely. And we're going to break that down from every angle. But before we do, we've got to get into what is just a crippling blow for the Jaguars offense as Rees-Zammit has elected to go back to the world of rugby, Rick.
Yeah, they had that exemption, that 91st roster spot, but he made that decision as I was getting off the air yesterday. And hey, he gave it a shot. He knew that his future was not here. It's obviously across the pond, and I think you'd agree with me. The wide receiver position group is arguably the strongest right now in this football team.
It is, and nothing against him, but I mean, he made Tim Jones look like Megatron. I mean, at some point, can we be done with this like charade that a kid from Europe is going to make anything of themselves as an NFL player? I mean, it's almost insulting. I get trying to like grow the game, and if you want to play games over there, I get that. But I mean, I don't. They've now had 3 or 4 of these guys, and at least in the game of the NFL, they couldn't walk and chew gum at the same time.
No. And listen, this wouldn't be a great business model, but this whole growing of the game really aggravates me. This is our game. Keep it here. I mean, I listened to the commissioner, Roger Goodell, talking about how eventually we're going to have a Super Bowl in Germany or Mexico or whatever. There's talk that next year there could be 16 international games. I've never been a big fan of going over to London. I've been several times. I know you've been over there as well. I want the games played here in the States. I understand it's a business. They want to make more money. This game is attractive to other countries, but can we place them, in the background here? This is our game in the United States of America. No one wants to go to these other countries outside of the owners who, of course, pocket big money.
Yeah, well said. So not to belabor it, but best of luck to Rees-Zammit, and we'll look forward to the next international player.
Great name.
Exactly. The Jaguars will sign that will never have any chance. It was funny. I had a English media outlet email me, and they were like, "Can you join us to talk about Rees-Zammit and whether he would have ever played in an NFL game?" And I emailed the guy, but I couldn't do it. It just didn't line up with my schedule. But I said, I can't do it, but I'll let you know there's no chance he would have ever played an NFL regular season game. And the reporter emailed me back and was like, that's what we think too, but we can't say that. So anyway, but yeah, that's it. But I am excited about the mock game tonight because I do think it's going to carry a little bit more intensity than anything that we've ever really seen from one of these, which has been under Doug Peterson, Urban Meyer, Doug Marrone. I don't know that Gus Bradley, I can't remember I guess they did these, but I think it was sort of the garden variety practice. Like these have always been basically a practice that they elect to have in the stadium. But this seems a little different talking, hearing Liam Cohen talk with reporters after practice. And an offensive coordinator, Grant Udisky, when he kind of talked about, we're going to have the offense come off the field, go over some adjustments, talk about things like you would in a game, and then send them back out there. So I'm kind of excited to see what this looks like tonight, Rick.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. And I think there's a lot of guys out there that need to have a good evening, that there's still some competition in a lot of spots. And whether that's for 2 or 3 starting jobs that you can make a case for, particularly defensively, or to make the 53. So I'm interested. It's a mock game or simulated game. I don't think they're going to kick off and where you return it, that is where they're going to scrimmage. No, they're going to put this all around the field. We've seen a lot of red zone work early on this year during training camp. I hope they design to do some things like that. I guess no tackling is still the rule. So for those who want goal line tonight, which I would love to see, I don't know if that is going to happen. I think it's also going to be interesting because Hayes, I've always been an every snap count guy. I want my first team guys getting every possible rep that they can. With that said, do you need to see Brian Thomas tonight? Do you need to see Trayvon Walker tonight? Do you need to see Josh Hines-Allen tonight? Yeah, they need live bullets. They need to get ready, but you got 3 preseason games coming up. So that's going to be very interesting to see. There's already about, 10 guys who won't go because they're injured. So all of a sudden your 90s down to 80. That's going to be interesting to see what they end up doing with that.
As we, now are a week and change into camp, what has stood out to you?
Speed and physicality. I love the DBs. I don't know how they're going to hold up, but I mean, it just seems like they're very physical. They're trying to take the football away. A year ago, the Jaguars only had 8 defensive takeaways, which is just a total embarrassment in 17 games. I mean, just terrible. And you didn't have a guy who had more than one takeaway individually. So we've noticed that early on with Anthony Campanelli and with Ron Milas, the secondary coach, that even when they were not involved in any contact at all during the offseason, during OTAs and minicamp, they really are stressing trying to take the football away. So, I would like to see some of those wide receiver, defensive back matchups tonight. I also think it's been a really strong showing so far for the running back group. I feel like Tank right now is the number 1, and ETN is still going to be very much involved, particularly in the screen game with Liam Cohen. So, yeah, just overall. And then, Hayes, you get to the ditch and it's a mystery. I mean, that's right there. If you're a columnist and you already have a couple of things written, you're ready to fill in. What are you going to say tonight about this offensive line? And what are you going to say about this defensive line with Eric Armstead not playing and Mason Smith not out there? So there's a ton to look for. How about yourself?
Yeah, no, I agree. To me, it's the physical nature of it. I go back to Liam Cohen's introductory press conference when he said he was asked about the offensive line, and he said, we know that's got to get better. That's got to mean something. When we break the huddle, the first thing the opposing defense sees is our offensive line, and that's got to mean something. To me, we're only a few days into pads. The first one was Monday, so they now have settled in. You should start to see the physicality ramp up if it is going to be ramped up in this training camp. And I have always believed that it would be because of Tony Baselli as EVP and Liam Cohen's comments from the outset. But you need to see that tonight. I mean, to me, this needs to have a little bit of a heightened intensity for a multitude of reasons. One is they've got to establish themselves as a physical football team. And they're far enough into a padded practice session now that they should be able to get out there and have an intense practice. And they need to have it because, as we've seen, if this club just tries to get to week 1 healthy by not hitting in training camp or not hitting much under Doug Peterson and in Marone's final year, where the players basically were like, we're not going to, we're done with this tough training camp stuff. It just doesn't lead to anything. Yeah, you're healthy at week 1, but you're a finesse team. So you have no chance. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're healthy week 1, if you have no chance to succeed because you haven't built up any sort of toughness and physicality as a unit. If that's completely lacking in your identity, you have no chance. So yeah, the injury risk is going to be there. It's football, but to me, I think it's important tonight to hear the pads pop and to feel like when you walk out of there, to feel like the intensity is not going to be at a 10 out of 10, but that it needs to be at a higher level than what we have seen thus far, and what we have traditionally seen under former coaches in this building.
Yeah, to me, it feels like they really want to go. And I know you've interviewed a bunch of players. I have as well. They all say it, but again, you can say things and not mean things. That's just the way it is in life. But it feels like this group does want to go. And I hope that that's the case. I mean, to me, that's arguably the most difficult decision that any staff has to make, because you want to protect these guys. You don't want them to get hurt. But again, I mean, you're getting it ready to play 3 preseason games and 17 regular season games where it's going to be live contact. So you got to get these guys ready. I also think, Hayes, that it's still, it's not a written rule as to how these 3 preseason games do work. I mean, we were so set with 4 where you kind of knew the blueprint about when starters were going to go, when starters were going to sit. It's been kind of complex as we get into, I believe, year 3 or year 4 of 3 preseason games. Correct me if I'm wrong, but last year the Jaguars didn't see a starting quarterback in the preseason.
That's correct.
So yeah, I mean, it's again, it's not perfect, and everyone has a different philosophy on this. So to design this for tonight, I understand there's going to be some times where they're going to be holding their breath, that you don't want to see live contact. But I just mentioned the running backs. It's time. They need to take some They need to take some hits, and they need to be able to dish out some hits. What's going to happen the first time we see Travis Hunter in contact? I saw, I think it was either Monday or it was late last week. I noticed that Dewey, it had to have been when pads were on. Dewey kind of pushed him over by the sideline. And I was like, and my instant thought was, don't do that. That's Travis Hunter. This is practice. And then I'm like, you got to get the guy ready for the regular season. You can't always pamper these players. And I say that respectively. So, I think tonight's going to be, again, that'll be the number one thing to look for. I think fans who go will see the speed that we've been talking about, but that'll be the true test, is to just how much they actually do hit tonight during this mock game.
What do you think the role will be for Travis Hunter tonight?
I think they'll showcase it a little bit in front of the fans. I don't think they'd invite the fans out. That'd be such an Urban Meyer thing to do, to invite the fans out, then not play Travis Hunter. I think we'll see him get, I don't know, maybe 10 to 12 plays on offense, perhaps a few more, and less than that defensively. I would say single digits on the defensive side. How about you?
Yeah, I think he's going to certainly play both sides. I mean, again, if it's a mock game, if the purpose of this is to really help the team get ready for Carolina in week 1 and what that's going to look like logistically, he needs to play both sides tonight. I mean, he needs to go through that. The coaches need to go through that. So I would think that my guess is he'll start on offense first and play a series or 2 of offense. But I would be stunned if he doesn't change jerseys and play some defense at some point in the mock game. I mean, to me that's a big that's a high priority in terms of things that they need to get accomplished tonight. Just getting used to how that dynamic is going to work in a real game. Yeah,
it makes total sense. And I said earlier, I mentioned 3 players that I didn't necessarily need to see tonight: Thomas Jr., Walker, and Hines Allen. Well, it hasn't been the greatest start to camp for Trevor and Thomas Jr. They've been at times on different pages. There's been a lot of drops. So again, I just made the point. Do you need to play Thomas Jr. tonight with 3 preseason games coming up? Maybe you do for a couple of series that kind of work on this chemistry that you hope will develop. I mean, you look at what Brian Thomas did a year ago, it was sensational. He got most of those passes from Mac Jones. I mean, I was reviewing, I keep a notebook as I always have, and I was reviewing last year when they had that colossal choke at Miami. And, Gabe Davis, the first 3 games, 2 of them, he was the leading target, as far as targets. They didn't even attempt to throw the football in the second half last year to Brian Thomas Jr., who ended up being their best player. So it just feels like it's not perfect right now between Trevor and Thomas Jr. I'm not worried about it. I happen to be one of those who believes that Thomas Jr., when it's all said and done, who I think is their best player, is going to be a much better game day player than he actually is a practice player. But now I would kind of like to see at least, the first series or 2, Thomas out there with that offense.
Yeah, I would agree. I think they need to, take it to a higher level. I think Trevor's been good. I think he's been decisive. And so I think he's had a good start to camp. I will say this defensively, yesterday, De'Ami Brown broke away and was wide open deep down the field. Probably didn't have a defender within 10 yards of him when he caught the ball. But for the most part, other than that, I can't think of a blown assignment that the starting secondary has had.
No.
They have, to me, been very locked in on, and really haven't given up much, in terms of the intermediate to deep stuff. So I think that's been encouraging. I think the defense hasn't hasn't handed big plays on a silver platter to the offense. And I think Trevor's done a pretty good job. I would agree. I think BTJ has gotten off to a little bit of a slow start in camp. But I'm like you. I'm not worried about, I think he's a superstar. So I don't think he'll be at all bothered by the time we get to week 1. But another thing I want to get your opinion on, Rick, is I think Liam Cohen does an excellent job of, to this point, is a first-time head coach. I think he has done a awesome job in terms of how to emotionally play this team. An example that I would bring up is the Trevor Lawrence pop quiz where he beat Mullins and Wolford. I have a fair amount of skepticism on that, but I think it's important, and I commend Liam Cohen for doing this, because Trevor Lawrence needs that confidence boost. He needs to feel, particularly with that element of his game, the intellectual, cerebral part of playing football. So, and look, I'm not saying I think it's a brilliant masterstroke by Liam Cohen to present an exercise in which Trevor Lawrence comes out of it as the smartest quarterback. And look, maybe he was, but where I'm going with this is playing at home, playing in Jacksonville is something that I don't think really any head coach in the time that I've covered them since 2013 has really harnessed as being a special thing. I mean, they can talk about it, and they all have, how important it is to win at home, holding serve at home, but it's never felt like a core part of the program. And, maybe Liam Cohen having some college roots. Again, I'm encouraged by the fact that this is going to be, it seems like, a more elevated mock game and not just a regular practice. But they've got to get better winning in Jacksonville. They are 5-10 in Jacksonville over the last 2 years. And I get it. You're never going to have the pageantry of college football. But so I'm not looking for the intensity to be a 10 out of 10. But can it at least be like a 4 out of 10 when you're playing at home? Can it at least feel like it means something to you, that, you're playing in front of your paying fans who live and die with each win and loss? Because it really doesn't feel like any coach has harnessed that. And maybe Liam Cohen can.
No, it's an interesting point. And, last year had to have been one of the most disappointing seasons of the 30 that we've seen here. That football team just looked at their fans and said, we're going to give you zero opportunity, zero, to enjoy yourself during the 2024 season. They never scored when they got the ball. They averaged just over 3 points a game in the first quarter. They went 18 consecutive games without scoring on their opening drive. They were in an absolute freaking coma on offense when the game began. I mean, feel free, this new team, to go up 3-0, to kick a field goal, to maybe drive the field and score a touchdown, to give these fans something to stand up about and slap a back and kiss a baby and say, this is great. Last year's team looked at them and said, watch this. We will give you nothing to celebrate the entire season. I believe if Doug Peterson came in here, he'd have no clue about that. Remember during the Peterson era, there were so many things that needed to change. They couldn't win out in the West Coast. They never won. And there was like so many statistics that were just awful. And, Peterson and them, they brought, but he had no clue. Obviously, Urban Meyer before that had no clue. I have a real good feeling. I think Baselli has a lot to do with this, that this new regime, they know what happened last year, and they know what happened 2 years ago. And I think that's important. I think the biggest mistake that Nick Foles ever made when he got here, I can't remember where I was on the road when he took us through the trials and tribulations and how fans need to be patient. And I was like, brother, you just said the absolute worst thing. Because you know what Nick Foles' memory was? Studying tape between New England and Jacksonville in the AFC Championship game. Nick Foles, despite all the money he made, I think he came here with the understanding that Jacksonville was a perennial playoff team. He didn't do simple research. Liam Cohen and this staff, I think they've done massive research, and they're aware of those numbers. They may not admit it because they don't want to come out as, oh, yeah, I'm well aware of it. But yeah, you got to win here at home. We'll be talking about it in a month. That game against Carolina, there's never a must win in week one. That's just absurd in the NFL. But think about how important that game is going to be for this franchise to get up on the right foot, because it's a pretty difficult schedule, after that Carolina matchup. So, yeah, I think it's a good point. And, it feels like this team is fully aware of where they need to go, but they also totally understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, great points all. Rick, man, thank you so much. I'll look forward to doing this again on a regular basis. You'll be our Friday guest once we get into sort of a permanent schedule beyond training camp. But certainly looking forward to it, man, and really appreciate your time today hopping on with us. We'll be back for another edition of Duval Rundown on Monday. Until then, enjoy it. We don't get to go into the stadium that often and watch the team play, so it's going to be a lot of fun tonight. Look forward to seeing you guys down there, and we'll be back Monday to break it all down on Duval Rundown.